What we tried to share today was basically an outline of our experiences of working with customers. The reason we think that's important is they are definitely the sort of gateway to our shoppers and our consumers. And if we don't have good relationships, particularly with the key ones, potentially they can derail what it is that we're trying to achieve with our brands.
The reality is, even a brand like Skittles, which is seeing some fantastic in-market performance, we've got consumers who love the brand. We're relying on promotions as well to grow it, and ultimately that is unsustainable. 62% sold on deal in multiple grocery. Where's that going to go? When do you stop?
It's a step change. I mean, you've got to remember most of the businesses like ours are essentially run by supply chain and manufacturing, and it's all about essentially what we can make, and it tends to be built on an efficiency model. And retailers are often very similar as well. So to do what we're trying to do actually is quite difficult and goes against the sort of flow of a typical manufacturing process.
So the next step in the process, and thank you, Kantar, for your model. I've stolen it with pride. Next step in the process is say, okay, well, what do we actually want to do as a business? What are we trying to achieve? And we're trying to do two things with this insight. One is clearly retain today's business, but for the customers that we do have is retain their loyalty by saying, okay, we understand that you have more needs that we can potentially meet for you, and get them to spend more money on our brands.
The main example that we used and we talked about today was about how we co-created a product from start to finish with a UK major grocery retailer, and about how we involve not just the retailer themselves but their shoppers in the specific creation of that product that eventually was launched into store. So there was a real buy-in both from our retail partners and also their shoppers into the process.
And we've learned a hell of a lot by doing this. We wouldn't do it exactly the same again. You'll see in a minute when we get into the evaluation bit about why we wouldn't, but there were some fantastic bits that worked really well, and a lot of it was just about sitting down with a customer and saying, what do you want? Let's do something together, and they got really excited about it.
The whole premise of the activity was the end consumer and the shopper could actually choose the flavours that would go into the pack. So we sent out loads of samples and they would vote and go, okay, this is the one we want or don't like that one. And ultimately what went into the pack is what the consumers and the shoppers chose. Yeah. So it was very much by them saying this is what we would like to see in the store, so they were very engaged in that process.
Yeah. That was done in store with that particular customer's shoppers, so it's a very unique offer to them, something that none of their competitors would want to see, would be able to see or be able to reproduce.
But I think what was really flattering for us was the fact that it was recognised as best practice by IGD, who's totally independent. So it was just really the fact that we worked with ASDA to say, well, what are you looking for? How do we innovate with you? And the way that we went about it, really working with ASDA's assets, so their internal systems and processes and assets that they have, really paid off for us.
So it's trying to move the conversation away from price and more into value creation through other ways of doing it.
Yeah. And the execution, because it involves the customer specifically, was much better than simply a price promotion would have ever achieved in store. So we had much better space, we had much better feature, much better location as a result of this engagement.
And I think one of the key things that came out from ASDA's point of view is like, okay, we were quite safe with the flavours. If we can do something, let's be more bold, let's be more dramatic. But it does go back to that video we saw this morning of, you know, somebody dancing alone and then suddenly people start to join. So now that we've been through this process, I think the intent is we'll be braver, we'll make bigger decisions, and sometimes get them wrong, but that's the journey we need to go on.
I think for me what was really interesting was that what we tried to do wasn't actually that innovative. It wasn't a big I innovation. It was just something that was a little bit tweaked, a little bit tailored, and actually it works fine. So you don't have to have some amazing breakthrough insight in order to be able to do this level of customization. It just requires a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of creativity.